if you sew a button on, you can do this. Anyone can do it. And you can do it with fat needles and thin needles. So if you can't thread them easily, then just go up a needle size and choose some wool or something else. There's so many possibilities, and it's simple, and it's the simplicity that I really like.
So it's just a classic global running stitch.
It is.
That, I mean,
it
it's used in Indian quilts and
yes,
all sorts.
Boro and Cancer, all of those textile traditions. Yes, it's not far off any of them, really.
And they're so beautiful in their simplicity.
Yeah,
it's just
it's the Quaker in me likes that.
Yeah.
So yes.
So Deborah, you're going to decorate a shroud cover for either for a coffin or a shroud.
It would be for a shroud.
Yes, right. Who is it for, and why are you doing it?
It's for my husband. We will have been married 40 years next year, and he is now ill with a terminal cancer, but that they're giving him life-lengthening drugs for. So we've got this wonderful space of time now, which a lot of people don't have, where we can just talk about things like funerals and that type of what we want or what he doesn't want. And often he's clearer about what he doesn't want, which I think is important. And also he's completely blind and has been blind for a long time. So we had the advantage then of it being able to adjust our lives gradually. And what we learned from that was what a privilege it is in this situation to have time again to think about these things. And it's not a situation that a lot of people have. And I would really like to encourage people just to think a little bit in advance, because it's been such a life-enhancing conversation in a really curious way. It's like been the end of a marriage. It will be the bookend of the marriage, and the marriage itself was interesting and different to most things. And I think we both have now seen the shroud approach and what he wanted for the last bit of our relationship. It's been really lovely, really nice time for review and thinking about things. Yeah, that's why.
So do you feel it's really helped you both with this experience to be focusing on something creative rather than the illness itself?
Oh my goodness, yes. I think the first part of this, i.e. immediately after the diagnosis, was really quite traumatic. We didn't know how to talk to people. We have 3 sons. That was a bit easier. But we didn't know what to say or how much to say. And then we had all these questions that other people asked us. And again, going back to the blindness, we'd always been very open about the blindness. We are both, in a way, we're both quite creative people. I mean, I've done I did a foundation art course a couple of years ago. Been good with my hands forever. And he's a great gardener and has, even with his blindness, he still grows all our veg every year and makes things out of wood and things for the garden and everything. And I think it was really nice because in the beginning, the only thing we could talk about was the negative. Whereas this and the creativity is something I've had to stop doing sort of original art because I haven't got the headspace for that, because there's a lot more to do when you've got doctor's appointments and everything. But it's really nice for me to see this as a creative project, because I've always been creative, that will bridge the gap between wanting to give Michael a good death and me in my life after he dies being able to return to more creativity. So I haven't completely put my creativity away, and it's created a focus between us, and it's created a lot of interest. And I've talked to people about what I now call the Shroud Project. People, initially they're very unsure, and then we get talking a bit, and the creativity is what inspires other people. And I think I couldn't be without something to do, and I might as well do something which is as enabling as this. The great thing about sampling is that you're clear about what you don't like and what you do like, and
it's essential.
Yes, it's essential.
Absolutely
essential. And I love the simplicity of the stitching, and it's been lovely to talk to people about them and show them to people and say, have a look at this, and they think, oh, oh, that I could do that. And I think that's what I like about this.
Yeah.
It's just a needle and thread, and many of us have used a needle and thread, and it's given people a sense of curiosity about it. Yeah.
So, despite his blindness, he's been quite involved in the whole process.
Oh yes, and when I took the sample home, I just gave it to him and said, oh, that's quite cosy, I like the idea of that.
Oh.
And so that was a really and it's very tactile, and I'm using an embroidery technique rather than the felting. I can do the felting, but I felt the catharticness of this was nicer. To raise the surface a bit, I found some wooden beads so that he can feel that. And we've been talking about things we wanted commemorating on the shroud of our joint lives, of this 40-year marriage between these two bookends. And he's just said, oh, what about the cows? And so we're going to have a representation of the dairy and the cows and the farm. And we're going to do other things like, our 3 boys and some of what they do, and the increased concept of a family tree. It's not going to be a family tree as you see in a ancestry site, but we're going to incorporate that. And recently he's said, oh, I'd like to have this part of my life incorporated as well. And
so you're doing it through symbols and shapes rather than the figurative
cows. No figurative stuff. I think that would have given me too much pressure. I think one of the reasons I had to give up my art practice was because I could not cope with the sense of process and constantly testing processes. This is a very simple process which enables us to then represent, as you say, and we're going to have these circles, and like for the cows there is going to be a multitude of green in a green circle, which would be the pasture and the land and everything, and then I'm going to incorporate little black and white bits, because they were black and white cows, into the thing, and into that circle, so that's a representation of our life as dairymen. I'm playing around with the idea at the moment of the sheep, because we did have a sheep flock, and I'm wondering whether that might break the rule about only stitching, and I might just needle felt a bit of fleece into that and then stitch it in, because it would raise the surface but it would represent our sheep life. So yes, the idea of getting hung up about drawing a figurative cow, I had to just put that away because it was too much.
Yes.
I love this wavy pattern, and I also love the way that the stitching has gone over it. And again, these are silks and woolens, and I like the way they sort of sit in the wool.
So you're really thinking about quite a few different techniques. So you've got the bead sewing, you've got the stitching, and you've got
yes, thread
the possibility of needle felting as well.
Yeah. I've definitely tried out. I've come to the conclusion that I like the natural, so linen, wool, flax and cotton. I have got some samples here of, the other synthetics, but I don't like the effect of them as much. So I'm going to restrict what I do to those.
Have you taken that decision that the cover will go with Michael into the grave? Because, some people feel that's the right thing. I did that for my mother because she was called Primrose, and so she had a cover with lots of primroses on it. But other people feel they'd like to keep it as a commemoration, a kind of comfort blanket in a way, and then maybe add to it, down the generations maybe.
I really have taken that decision, or we have taken that decision, and one of the reasons for the shroud being so much to Michael's liking was that he was a farmer and he wanted to go back to the soil, and where he's going to be buried is not going to be that far from where we used to farm. The other part of that decision is that I felt very uncomfortable, as did my boys actually, and they're now in their 30s, that it felt slightly odd that I would keep it. And so he is going to be buried with it, and it's that whole sense of him feeling cosy in something that I've made, and also gratitude to him for his amazing encouragement, because I had not had any art education for family reasons, and he gave me, the day we were married, he said, right, I'm going to make sure this art education is right. So the idea that he's buried with a piece of artwork of mine has significance. But all these samples I'm going to keep, and I will probably frame them, and I will keep them as working documents. So these little labels will be framed with them.
So
and So a bit of both.
So that's the memento, really, isn't it?
Yes.
The sample.
Yeah.
Such a lovely idea.
Yeah.
Really lovely.
Yeah.